Traveling offers a chance to relax and escape the demands of daily life. However, sometimes what starts as an enjoyable journey can take an unexpected and unfortunate turn. Today, we will delve into a particularly grim episode, the 2014 Koh Tao murders in Thailand. The Koh Tao murders case is complex. There is a significant divide between public opinion and the views of the government and judiciary. The investigation has been viewed by many as suspicious and lacking in transparency. The hastiness in pinning guilt on the accused, perceived by some as mere scapegoats, has sparked public protest and raised questions about the fairness of the judicial process. Let's now delve into the details of the case. In the early hours of September 15, 2014, a beach cleaner began her routine task of cleaning along the Sairi beach in Thailand's Koh Tao Island. She was met with a shocking and horrifying scene. 2 bodies were found on the beach, one floating in the water and the other on the shore. Nearby, a bloody gardening hoe and a bat were discovered. Overwhelmed and panicked, she quickly alerted other locals and the police. The bodies were identified as those of Hannah Witheridge and David Miller. David's body bore significant injuries, jagged wounds on his scalp, with shattered cheekbones, an eye socket, and an upper jaw. Water was found in his lungs, and the cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma to the head. Scratches on his back indicated a struggle, possibly an attempt to avoid drowning. His body was found floating in the ocean, about 20 meters away from Hannah's. Hannah's case was equally distressing. Evidence suggested she had been sexually assaulted before her death. She had jagged wounds on her head and both sides of her face, severe enough to cause brain injury. Her forehead, eye sockets, and jaws were all fractured. Nearby, used condoms were found, adding to the grim scene. Hannah, a 23-year-old from England, was brought up there. She had recently graduated from the University of Essex, earning a degree in speech and language therapy. Those who knew Hannah described her as having a vibrant and endearing personality. She and her friends were spending summer in Thailand, enjoying a vacation before Hannah was due to start her master's program. During her travels, she regularly updated her friends and family back in England about her adventures and whereabouts. David Miller, on the other hand, was a 24-year-old man from Jersey, the UK. He had recently completed his degree in civil and structural engineering at the University of Leeds. Known for his remarkable character, David, much like Hannah, was in Thailand with friends for a break. Initially, Hannah and David were part of separate travel groups. On the morning of September 12, both groups checked into their respective hotels. David's friends had reservations at the Ocean View Resort bungalows near Sairi Beach. It was at this resort that the 2 groups first met and formed a bond, including Hannah and David's initial encounter. Over the next 3 days, the newly united group explored the island together, bonding as though they had been friends for a long time. On September 14, Hannah and David, along with their friends, decided to enjoy a night out on the island. They moved from one bar to another, capturing the moments in photos and thoroughly enjoying themselves. As the night progressed, Hannah and David, who had developed an interest in each other, excused themselves to return to their bungalow. This was the last time their friends saw them alive. Soon after, a tragic event unfolded. In response to the murders, locals took decisive action by sealing off the docks, aiming to prevent any suspected murderer from escaping the island. This showed the magnitude of the community's involvement and concern. However, the situation at the crime scene was not handled as effectively, with only 6 police officers on Koh Tao, largely due to the island's small size and traditionally low violence level. The investigation was chaotic and poorly managed, lacking the presence of a specialist. Initially, without concrete evidence, the police speculated on the identity of the perpetrator, erroneously accusing several individuals. The investigation focused first on foreigners, with a police spokesperson claiming such a crime wouldn't be committed by a Thai citizen. Attention shifted from migrant workers to Western tourists familiar with the victims. A British tourist who had been staying with Miller was singled out as a suspect. The police hastily labeled the incident a crime of passion without clear justification, suggesting possible malicious motives for the tourist. A national manhunt was launched, but with no substantial evidence to support their claims, the lead was soon abandoned by the police. In their efforts to find a match for the DNA evidence found on Hannah's body, the used condoms, and cigarette butts near the scene, the police tested the DNA of hundreds of individuals. Their focus remained primarily on migrant workers on the island, rather than the local population at large. During this investigation, allegations surfaced that the police were verbally aggressive and abusive, particularly towards migrants. The police denied these allegations, but reports of migrants displaying bruises and scald injuries suggested otherwise. After about a month of investigations with little progress, the police identified a significant lead from CCTV footage on October 2nd. The footage captured 3 individuals, identified as Mau Mau, Zhao Lin, and Wai Pyo, all of Burmese descent, riding a motorcycle near a 7-Eleven store before heading to Sairi Beach. Later, the CCTV showed them taking a shortcut after leaving Sairi Beach. Consequently, these 3 men became the primary suspects, as they were confirmed to be in Sairi Beach on the night of the murders. During questioning, Mau Mau stated that he had taken the motorcycle and gone somewhere without the other 2 men before the murders, only to return and find them both asleep. Zhao Lin's interrogation revealed that he had entered the country illegally. Wai Pyo, interestingly, was not on the island when he was arrested. The police suspected he was trying to flee the scene of the crime by boat. The complexity of the case escalated as the investigation progressed. The police claimed they obtained confessions from the 3 men, who allegedly admitted to committing the murders after being aroused by seeing the victims at the beach. Additionally, the police asserted that the DNA evidence matched the suspects, and that David's missing phone was found with Zhao Lin. However, these claims were quickly challenged. Media, experts, and friends contradicted the police's narrative. The phone, it turned out, had been handed over to the police by one of David's friends, not found with Zhao Lin. Jane Toppin, a forensic science expert, raised doubts about the DNA testing, noting it was completed suspiciously quickly for such a complex process. Furthermore, the suspects later retracted their confessions, alleging severe abuse and death threats from the police to coerce their admissions. These developments raised serious questions and controversies. People began to doubt whether the police were genuinely seeking justice or hastily closing the case. Notably, the suspects had not been provided legal counsel before confessing, and their communication with pro bono lawyers was severely limited. This led to speculation about potential bias against the migrants involved in this case. People expressed their dissatisfaction and concern over the handling of the case. The public protests in response to the handling of the Koh Tao murders were seen as controversial, particularly by the Thai government. The Prime Minister at the time reacted strongly, seeking to identify those who were promoting the rally. The government perceived these protests as a deliberate attempt to damage the reputation of both the government and the police. This approach of tracking down the protesters instead of addressing the concerns raised, unfortunately gave the impression of a government more focused on silencing dissent than engaging with its citizens' worries. Despite the chaos, the trial moved forward. In December 2014, the accused were convicted on multiple charges, including sexual assault, unlawful entry into Thailand, killing to cover up a crime, premeditated murder, and illegal residency. The prosecution's case was backed by a 900-page police report, which questionably was not made available to the defense until the trial began. The Koh Samui Provincial Court opened an 18-day trial on July 8, 2015, under these contentious circumstances. The prosecution's argument centered on DNA evidence they claimed matched the accused, supported by police investigations and a post-mortem expert's findings. They contended that the defendant's primary intent was to kill David by repeatedly striking him on the head with a hoe. After incapacitating David, they restrained Hannah, assaulted her, and eventually killed her using the same hoe, after she had been rendered unconscious. However, no eyewitnesses to the murders were identified, and there was speculation that potential witnesses were either too afraid to come forward or reluctant to interact with the police. The defense highlighted several flaws in the investigation, pointing out the mishandling of forensic evidence and allegations of confessions obtained under duress. In a significant development on July 10th, the court ordered a retest of the DNA evidence. But the police reported that the samples from Hannah's body had been depleted. Instead, they proposed examining DNA samples from the murder weapon. In a surprising twist, the Central Institute of Forensic Science found that the DNA on the hoe did not match any of the defendants. This revelation raised questions about the guilt of the accused. The absence of testimony from key individuals like forensic experts Jane Toppin, due to fear or other restrictions, didn't help the case at all. In the end, Zalin and Wai Pyo, two of the three suspects, were found guilty of the murders of David Miller and Hannah Witheridge. They faced the severe punishment of a capital death sentence. The court's decision was primarily based on DNA evidence from the victims' bodies, without much regard for counter-arguments. Mau Mau, the third suspect, was only charged with illegal entry and residence in Thailand. Nakhon Champuchat, one of the lawyers, argued that the verdict was unjust and pointed out numerous inconsistencies in the prosecution's narrative. Despite this, the defendant's appeal in 2017 was rejected, with the court citing the police report as clear and credible. However, in 2020, on the occasion of the king's birthday, their sentences were commuted to life imprisonment. This is how the case officially ended. But the locals there had a different story to tell. According to a longtime resident of Koh Tao Island, the social dynamics on the island at that time were marked by a clear hierarchy. Thai citizens owned businesses, while the Burmese population, often mistreated, performed menial jobs. The island's control was largely under the mafia, divided among several families. The situation worsened with the widespread use of methamphetamine, which led to increasing violence. This local resident shared online about a specific bar that was well known as a mafia hangout and a popular spot for ladyboys. Most people steered clear of it because of the high likelihood of violence. Notably, the victims' bodies were discovered close to this bar. He argued that the bar's owner, a significant figure in the mafia, was implicated in the murders, a fact that, according to him, was common knowledge among the locals. Contrary to the official story, he said the local police, possibly corrupt and influenced by the mafia, wrongly accused 2 Burmese men of the crime. These men, despite having alibis, were reportedly tortured to confess to the murders. Theories about the motive for the murders varied. Some speculated that public intimacy by the victims may have offended local conservative values. Others thought a confrontation with ladyboys at the bar or a dispute over money there could have been the cause. He expressed doubt about the complete truth of the incident ever coming to light, although this version of events was widely accepted by many on the island at the time. However, in the absence of concrete evidence, this account remains a rumor, nothing more. While the mafia was speculated to be involved at one point, no substantial investigation into this angle was conducted. Yet, it continues to raise questions about whether the convicted men were truly responsible for the crime. The case cast a shadow over Thailand, especially Koh Tao Island. In light of additional tourist disappearances and murders, the island gained the grim nickname Death Island. This reputation led many to reconsider visiting, especially given rumors of the island being under the influence of the Thai mafia. Efforts to restore Thailand's appeal to international tourists were met with mixed reactions. Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha's comment on female tourist safety was controversial, particularly his remark that they'll only be safe if they're not beautiful. Similarly, the Tourist and Sport Minister's proposal to use identification wristbands for tourist safety was eventually abandoned. These responses and suggestions, rather than reassuring, seem to add to the controversy surrounding the safety of tourists in Thailand. The tragic deaths of Hannah Witheridge and David Miller deeply affected their friends, family, and all who followed the case. Our heartfelt condolences go out to their loved ones. This case, marred by questionable investigative practices and a controversial trial, leaves a bitter aftertaste, raising more questions than answers. What are your thoughts on the verdict? Do you believe justice was truly served? Please share your opinions in the comments. And that is all for today. Thanks for watching.